Bridgerton world getting a little too formulaic? Let's talk about it. Kristen here, and we're talking about the new Bridgerton prequel series, Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story. What's unique about this story is that all of the other Bridgerton seasons have been based off of the books by Julia Quinn, which are fictional. But Queen Charlotte and King George's story is actually a fictional retelling of real historical people. They really did have 15 kids. He really did deal with some of this, madness in a way. And what's also exciting about this story is that it takes us all the way back to where history changed itself in the Bridgerton world.
It is time we were united as a society, is it not?
When we watch the Bridgerton series now, it's very much a diverse place where, people of color are at the center of these Regency love stories. And getting a chance to watch this story, this is where it all began. And you really get to see how, the events of the past are influencing the present-day Bridgerton world. Let's start out with Queen Charlotte and King George.
Why me?
Charlotte, there are worse fates than marrying the King of England.
I think that they had incredible chemistry. I think that's one of the things that Bridgerton always gets right. The two love interests always have this fire that is just unmatched, and I think they really did a great job here as well. They do fall into the similar traps of they're not communicating, they really love each other, but they don't say it.
It is a nightmare. I hate everything about him.
Which we've kind of dealt with in every Bridgerton season so far. I really felt for the two of them, because this is a young woman who's being ripped from her life and brought into this royal world and then kind of left on her own to be isolated. You just see her every day getting dressed in these royal garments to sit alone at home and just eat by herself. And you're sort of wondering what is going on with George.
What's happening?
I do not want to fight.
I want to fight with you. Fight with me. Fight for me.
They had such a great meet cute at the beginning of this season.
You refuse to help a lady in distress.
I refuse when she's trying to go over a wall so that she does not have to marry me.
Your Majesty.
To you, I'm George.
And then you're like, wait, what happened? I thought this guy was just George. Why is he pushing Charlotte away from him? George being this person who really does love Charlotte, but has these fears that his own mental health will ruin their relationship. This is definitely a bit of a darker story. I felt like from the past seasons of Bridgerton, they made it seem like people question if the queen is trying to take over the throne or, get rid of George. Does she even really love him? And I felt like this show, through the ups and downs of their relationship, by the end you really get to see they genuinely love each other, and she's just trying to protect him and be there for him and continue his legacy, which I thought was really a beautiful story.
It is you and me. Together.
The young Lady Danbury was really such a hustler and such a woman ahead of her time. She becomes friends with the queen, but she's also working to, ensure her own security and nobility and money so that she can be independent. She's the one really pushing to get people of color titles and make sure that they can keep what they are given by the royal family. That it's not just a one-off of okay, well, we're just doing this little experiment because you have people of color here coming in and then we're going to revert everything back.
You are the first of your kind. You must secure your position.
She did what she had to do, marrying an old geezer, because that was what was expected of her, but she really was able to take everything she was dealt and flip it and give herself a fighting chance and a better opportunity for a future, which is why she's still Lady Danbury even in the present Bridgerton. I will say though, as much as I love that story and her fighting for equality and fighting to get what they deserve, I felt like the second half of the season, they explored this affair and another relationship for her that I just felt didn't add to the story in any real meaningful way. It kind of felt like just an addition to give her something else to do, when I would have loved to see just more of the impact that she was making to change society. Because it really is a combination of Charlotte becoming queen and sort of breaking that little barrier, but Lady Danbury really pushing and pushing to make a lasting change in the town, so to speak. The second half of that Lady Danbury story is really what kind of allowed a young Violet to come in, and I just felt like it didn't really add much to the story. And while we're focused on this story of Queen Charlotte, Lady Danbury, and Violet in their youth, we're paralleling that with them as adults in present-day Bridgerton society. Queen Charlotte is trying to get a new heir, and kind of continue the legacy on of her husband, while Lady Danbury and Lady Bridgerton are discussing things that I think are really refreshing to see in really any story, which is older women expressing their desires for love and romance and sex. The idea that just because you're a woman of a certain age doesn't mean that like those desires go away. And so I thought that was really an important story to show people. I feel like in a lot of Regency pieces, it's like this, you know, white, willowy woman finding romance. And in Bridgerton, we're breaking the boundaries. The center of these stories can be people of color, can be older women, can be, you know, people that you don't necessarily, you know, expect to see, but who were there and deserve their stories to be told too. There are only 6 episodes of this season, which I do think that they managed to tell like the full story in that time. There were some moments that did feel a little bit dragged out, or times where it felt like they were adding things in just to fill up the story. Like I mentioned, some of a young Lady Danbury and Violet stories. And I will say episode 4 is really key in kind of learning more about what King George is thinking. I think this season we're really seeing from Queen Charlotte's perspective and, you know, her thoughts on getting married. And so in episode 4 we really get to see what he's been thinking this whole time. And some of it felt like they're showing us new things, but also repeating full scenes over again in a way that was very repetitive. I think that they could have expanded the story in more ways than just like shot for shot bringing some of those scenes back again. At the core of it, you're like watching these young people, you know, dealing with mental health, dealing with isolation, dealing with feeling like, am I not enough for somebody? And I think by the end you kind of get the same story and resolution that you've gotten in the past seasons, which is it's 2 people who like are misunderstanding each other, not communicating, and then the end result is choose love, choose each other, communicate better. You know, communication is key. While I love this message and I think it's super important, sometimes it feels like we're getting kind of the same story over and over and over again. And so it would be nice to see them just kind of shake things up a little bit more versus following the same format every season. I would say overall I really enjoyed watching Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story. I thought there was a lot of depth, but also a lot of like romantic tension. I really believed this couple and I thought that they had just such great chemistry together. I really thought this was like a beautiful, heartfelt and emotional story, but I really connected to our 2 leads. I loved seeing how much Lady Danbury contributed to the way that Bridgerton is now and how diverse it is and accepting they are. I do feel like in 6 episodes there were some things that felt very repetitive, very filler-like. Every season has the same points that they're trying to hit, and I'd like to see them just like think outside the box a little bit more. I would love to see like what is next, like what could they do outside of, you know, this prequel. I know that right now they have the Queen's Ball, the Bridgerton Experience out in New York, which I went to go check out, and that was a lot of fun. It's just really cool to see that they're expanding this world in different ways, from like an in-person experience to this prequel series. You know, we have the 3rd season of Bridgerton coming up as well. So I'm just curious what else they can do in this world, because I'm not necessarily someone who is into historical fiction or historical stories like Bridgerton, but I feel like the way that they've modernized the Regency era with a combination of actually diverse characters, you know, people with tons of chemistry, and then also that modern like popular music with the orchestral instrumental, I just think is so much fun. I think they're doing a really great job of making the Regency era more accessible and relatable for people. I'd love to know what you think of Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story, and let me know what you want to see next. Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!